Okay, we're doing a quick overview of the Maamer Podoh בשלום Nafshi from Yotzes Kislev Tafshin Lamed Ches. The Rebbe starts off Podoh בשלום Nafshi Mikrav Li Kivirabim Hayu Yimadi, that we know that the Alter Rebbe said this pasuk as he writes in Tanya. He said this pasuk as he was reading pasuk Podoh בשlום Nafshi. Yatzasi Bashalem Hashem Shalem. He got the news that he was being released from prison. That the Gula of Yotzes Kislev is connected to this pasuk. The Gula of Yud Kislev is connected to Podoh בשלום Nafshi. It's in the Tehillim of the 10th day of the month. It's connected also with the Gula of Yud Beis, Yud Gimel Tammuz. And the Rebbe actually connects that to the fact that they're all connected to Shlishi. That the Gula of Yotzes Kislev is Yom HaShlishi Shehuch Bo Beikitev. It was on a Tuesday. And a Chedesh HaShlishi in the third month, the month of Kislev. Similarly, Yud Kislev is also the month of Kislev, is Chedesh HaShlishi, and Yud Beis Yud Gimel Tammuz was also on a Tuesday, was also the third day of the week, because the main Chiddush in Podoh בשלום Nafshi is the P'tiyah B'Shalom, that it was in peace, and Shalom is connected to the union of Shlishi, to the union of three. So the Rebbe says there's two pirushim, there's two meanings in Podoh בשלום Nafshi. The simple meaning of Podoh בשlום Nafshi is that the Eibishter is redeeming the tzaddikim, like David HaMelech himself, that it's going on b'pashtus, that he's being redeemed from the Melchama with Avshalom, and so too when it comes to Podoh בשlום Nafshi, it's connected to Yotzes Kislev, Yud Beis Tammuz, that the Eibishter redeems tzaddikim from the situations in which they find themselves. Then there's a second pirush, the Podoh בשlום Nafshi, the Maamer Chazal says, Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Eibishter says, Kol ha'osek b'Torah v'gemilas chasadim u'mispalel l'mat tzibur, that anybody who's involved in learning Torah, in gemilas chasadim and davening with the tzibur, Torah, tefillah, and gemilas chasadim, Torah, aveda, and gemilas chasadim, is ki'ilu p'ta'ani li'u levanai mibeinu meseilam, as if he redeemed me and my children from amongst the nations of the world. In other words, that the person who's learning Torah is redeeming the Eibishter Kaviyachal. So the Rebbe asked, what's the connection between these two pirushim? All pirushim in a pasuk, that if you have two pirushim in the same pasuk, they always have a connection one to another, but especially in this case, that the Maamerim of Yud Beis Yud Gimel of Yotzes Kislev and Yud Kislev and Yud Beis Yud Gimel Tammuz, all of which are talking about the actual P'tiyah of a tzaddik, the redemption of a tzaddik in Peil Mamish, that the Eibishter is redeeming him from prison. But they all talk about at the very beginning that Maamer Chazal, Ki'ilu P'dani Li Levane Mibeinu Meseilam, which means there's a relationship between the two. But first of all, who's being redeemed is different, because Podoh בשlום Nafshi, the simple sense is the tzaddik is being redeemed. But Ki'ilu P'dani Li Levanai is going primarily on the Eibishter. Even if you want to say over there, it also includes Levanai, so it includes the Yidden too. But who is doing the redemption? In the case of Podoh בשlום Nafshi, the simple sense, it's the Eibishter redeeming the tzaddik, and in the Maamer Chazal, P'dani Li Levanai, the one who's doing the redeeming is the person who's learning Torah. So how are they connected if they're talking about two completely different things? So to explain that, the Rebbe says, first we have to focus on these three inyanim of Torah, Aveda, and Gemilas Chasadim, Torah, Gemilas Chasadim, and Tefillah B'Tzibur, through which we redeem the Eibishter Liu Lavanai, that those are the three amudim that the world stands on. Since the world stands on those three things, that means that those three things existed already by the beginning of creation of the world, even though L'chatchila the Eibishter creates the world, Ki Chafetz Chesedu, and only afterwards, it depends on people. But since the whole kavanah of the Bria in the first place is for the sake of Yidden and for the sake of Torah, then the three pillars of Torah, Aveda, and Gemilas Chasadim are the pillars of the world also at the very beginning of its creation. How do they exist at the beginning of creation before Yidden are around? So there's a famous teaching of the Maggid that the Alter Rebbe quotes, that's also said in the name of the Alter Rebbe, that da ma l'mayla mimcha, that know what is above you doesn't just mean know what is above you, but da, know that kol ma shemil mayla, everything that is above is all mimcha, is all comes from you. In other words, the Aveda, the person, is what creates the reality above. It creates all of the spiritual energies and everything that happens in Shamayim. That's true not only after the person actually does the Aveda, but even before he does the Aveda. The Maggid says on the Pasuk Nasa Adam Mitzalmeinu Kidmusenu, that just like a mashal of a person who has a son, that the tzura, the form of the son, is nechkika, it's engraved in the thought of the father. And by the Eibush, their past, present, and future are one. That means not only after he has a son, but even before the world is ever created, that Surah of the Yidden, his son, B'ni B'chei Yisrael, is already, the way they're going to be, the way we're going to be down here, is already engraved in his machshava before he created the world. And that's the taich of B'mi Nimlach B'nishveseim Shel Tzadikim, that the Eibush, their thought about the tainug, the pleasure that he's going to have through the Aved of Tzadikim in this world. And that pleasure is what caused him to decide to create the world. Since we're saying that the three pillars, Teira, Aved, and Milas Chasadim, existed already in the beginning of the world, what does that mean? That the Eibishter, so to speak, puts himself into the form of a Yidden even before the Yid was created, and therefore the Aveda that will eventually do in Teira, Aved, and Milas Chasadim, which is Chesed, Gvura, and Tiferes, and Machshava, Dibra, Maisa, that's already the reason for why the Eibishter creates the world in the first place. But even though that by the Eibush their past, present, and future are one, still, says the Rebbe, there's a difference between the way it is in potential when the Eibush is creating the world and the way it is after they didn't actually do the Aveda. As it says about Magid Varav Liyakiv Chukum Mishmatav Yisrael, that the Eibush there tells us to do what he does, he tells us to do. That there's two interpretations in that also. One interpretation is that the Eibush there already does those mitzvahs and therefore he tells us to do it. Then it's like an Isserus Le'ela, that it's before the Isserus L'Sata that gives us the ability, what gives us the kayach to do the mitzvahs? The fact that the Eibush is telling us to do the mitzvahs that he already does. But the other interpretation is because a Yid does the mitzvah, that's what causes the Eibush to do the mitzvah. And that's the Isserus Le'ela that comes after the Isserus L'Sata, that comes after, that comes as a result of what the person did. And as we know, that's actually higher than the Isserus Le'ela that allows for the Isserus L'Sata is from a particular level. But the Isserus Le'ela that comes after the Isserus L'Sata is even higher. In other words, after Yid does the Aveda and Peil Mamish, then the mitzvahs of the Eibishter, so to speak, are an even higher level than even they were when he did it knowing that we'll later do the Aveda. If that's based on that, the Rebbe explains that it says that the sixth day of creation, Yom HaShishi, which is the main day of creation, it's Rosh Hashanah, and he connects that also to Rosh Hashanah L'Chsidis, to Yotis Kislev, that this is the primary day that's the focus of all of creation. And it says that why is it Yom HaShishi? Because it was dependent on Yom HaShishi on the sixth day of Sivan, when the Torah was given. That the Eibishter said, Im Yisrael mekablam es ha-Torah mutav. If the Yidden will accept the Torah, fine. If not, then it's going to revert to before Ma'aseh Bereshis. The whole acts of creation will cease to exist. Now, what does that mean? On the one hand, it means the Eibishter already knows that the Yidden are going to accept the Torah. So from the moment of creation, it's already has within it that knowledge mitzad the Eibishter, mitzad l'mayla, that this will be the case, that the world will have a kiyum because the Yidden will end up accepting the Torah. But, says the Rebbe, there's actually an advantage, mitzad the Eila, mitzad the world, it doesn't have that same strength of kiyum until it actually happens, until the Yidden are actually mekabel the Torah in Eila Ma'azeh Gashmi, and that creates a greater elevation, even as compared to the fact that the Eibishter knew in the first place that eventually we would be mekabel the Torah. Why is that? So the Rebbe connects this to the Maamer from a few weeks before that, and Mayim Rabbim in Nayach Tafshin Lamed Ches, where he spoke about the advantage of the Neshamis after they come down here. He talks over there also about this part of the Magid of Nechkat Surasam, that the image of the Yidden is engraved in the Eibishter's thought even before he creates the world. Nonetheless, he says, in the way the Yidden are, because the Eibishter's past, present, and future, so he knows we will come down to this world. That's the Aveda of Tzadikim. But when we actually come down into this world and we do the Aveda of Torah Mitzvahs V'Peil, then we add also the Darga of Balei Tshuva, of Aruach Tashav Elokim Asher Nisana, of reverting to an even higher level. since we know the whole point of the neshama coming down into the physical world isn't just to correct the neshama, but to be misakin the guf and the nefesh habahamis, that means that the effect on the world that we have through our Torah and mitzvahs is also higher when we actually do it, when we have also the ma'ila of tshuva, than the way it is before we do it, when it's only there in potential. And the Rebbe connects that also with the Torah of the Maggid, on Vayeshev, the Bali Lulav Yitzis Kislev, on Vayeshev Yaakov Beretz Miguri Aviv Beretz Canaan, that over there also the Maggid explains two interpretations. One is Vayeshev Yaakov, why does the neshama come down Lamata into the physical world, Ba'aretz into the physical world to deal with physical things? Because of Miguri Aviv, because he's gathering the Nitzaitzis, he's gathering the sparks of Kedusha. The word Miguri comes not only from living, but also from Magar, to gather. Agar Bakai, it's a treasure, a gather, something that's gathered together, that we gather together sparks of Kedusha and elevate them above. Now, the Rebbe points out that actually in the beginning of that Torah of the Maggid, he gives a different interpretation of Miguri Aviv. Magar from the lashon of fear. So Miguri Aviv is the yira Hashem. So in that way, Vayeshev Yaakov Beretz Miguri Aviv will mean that even when we're here in Aretz, in the physical world, in the lowliness of Eilam Hazeh, and in Eretz Canaan, which is the place of Rishaim, nonetheless, but Miguri Aviv, he remained connected to the Yiras Aviv Sheba Shamayim. And then he says that Miguri Aviv could also mean gathering the sparks. But the Rebbe says that these two interpretations of Vayeshev Yaakov Beretz Miguri Aviv are the same two inyanim that we talked about previously, of the baila that's achieved through actually the neshama actually coming down here. First, he's explaining the advantage that the neshama has by coming down here to the physical world. That through the fact that even in Artzias and Chumrias, even in the physical world, even Eretz Canaan, he still has Yiras Shamayim, it's going up higher. It's Yiri Dezutzeira Chaliyah is going higher than it was before he came down into this world. But then he explains an even higher level, not just the effect on the neshama, but the effect that's achieved through the neshama coming down here practically in the physical world, which is the true intent of that Yerida in the first place, that it enables it to gather the Nitzaitzis HaKadoshim, to elevate the Nitzaitzis, the sparks in this world, and bring them above. And that's even higher than the advantage that the Neshama is getting through dealing in the physical world. And the Rebbe says that this interpretation of Miguri Aviv, of gathering the Nitzaitzis, is Dafke said after the first one, after Miguri Aviv, Yiras Shamayim. Why? Because the fullness of being mevarer the nitzaitzis, of elevating the sparks of holiness. In other words, the second interpretation of Migurei is only achieved through the first Aveda of Yira, through the Bittul of Evet, through the first interpretation of Migurei from Yira. In other words, why? Because the Aveda of an Evet isn't for himself, not even in order to connect to the Adin, but rather just l'shamish eskainai. When the person does the Aveda through Migurei Aviv, through Bittul, therefore he does the Aveda not focused on what the Neshama's advantage is going to be, but in order to make a Dira Le'izbarach B'tachtenim, and that's how the Birur is actually done in a complete way. Now he says, practically speaking, how do we achieve this refinement in the world? It's through the Aveda in the three areas of Teira, Aveda, Gemilas, Chasadim. It has to all of them start with Bittul, with Yira, but it's through Teira, Aveda, Gemilas, Chasadim. Because just like the world was brought into being through Chesed, Gvura, and Tiferes, so to the refinement of the world, making it a Dira Le'izbarach B'tachtenim, has to be through the Aveda in all three areas. That's Vayeshev Yaakov Beretz Migurei Aviv, that the refinement of the world, Migurei Aviv, collecting the Nitzaitzis, is done specifically through Yaakov, because Yaakov is the third of the Avis, the Bechir Shabavis, because he brings together the Chesed of Avram, the Gvura of Yitzchak, with the Tiferes that he represented, and that's the Aveda of Teira, which is Orient Lisai, which is the third, which represents the level of three, and it was Yarchat Lisai in the third month, and the triple Teira, etc. Because the purpose of the Teira is to achieve a birur in the world, Lasas Shalem Beilam, which is the Aveda of three, and that's achieved through the Aveda in all three areas of being Tlisai, of being the third, and the Aveda of Yaakov Avinu. And that's why it says Kol ha'esek b'Torah uv'gemilas chasadim u'mispal ha'matzibur. It starts with Torah. Why? Because the way in which we're able to refine the sparks in the physical world, through which we achieve P'to'ani li'u levanai, to actually bring about the Gula, is through being involved in all three areas of Torah, Aveda, and Gemilas chasadim. But since the purpose of the kavana, the ultimate shleimus hakavana, is of the neshama coming down into the physical world, isn't for the benefit of tshuva that the neshama gets, but rather for the effect that it's going to have on the world, for elevating the sparks of kedusha in the world itself. So you could say that when a person does the aveda in all three areas of Torah, Aveda, and Gemilas chasadim, then he achieves the advantage in all three areas of chesed, gvura, tiferes above, and that's primarily done because when that Aveda is done Pepeil Mamish, when not just you have the Maila of Tshuva and the Neshama, but when you actually do the Aveda of Torah, Aveda, Gemilas chasadim in the physical world, because that's the ultimate purpose, refining the physical world itself. Based on that, the Rabbi goes back to answer the original question. How do you bring together the two interpretations of Podoh B'Shalom Nafshi? One, that the Eibishter is redeeming the Tzaddik. And then the Pirush of Chazal, that the Yid that's learning Torah and Eisek and Torah, Aveda, and Gemilas chasadim and Mispal HaMatzibur is the one who's redeeming. Because the fact that the Eibishter redeems the Yidden practically, and even the practical union of redemption, that even in the time of Galus, Layanim v'Layishan Shemir Yisrael, that the Eibishter literally, physically guards the Yidden, Beruchnius and Begashmius, as Kein Zach soll sie nicht anrühren, nicht können anrühren, that nothing should be able to heaven forbid harm them and affect them, as explained at length in Yeshe B'Seser, until it comes till the ultimate Geula. How is that achieved, though? What brings about the redemption from the Eibishter? That's achieved by the person doing his Aveda in the three kavim of Torah and Gemilas chasadim and Tefillah. That's what brings about the P'to'ani li'u levanai. In other words, the Yid's redemption of P'to'ani li'u levanai is what causes the Eibishter to bring the Gula and to do the Gula in a much higher way than it would have been on its own, just like the Aveda b'Payil of the Yidden in the physical world brings about the higher kavana even than when the Eibishter knew that the kavana would be fulfilled before he created us. And the Rebbe emphasizes that he's medayek kol ha'esek b'Torah, that the person's aveda and Torah and Gemilas chasadim and davening is in a manner of esek. What's an esek? A bal esek, a business person, is completely and totally immersed in the work that he's doing. Even when he's not doing the work, he's thinking about it, he's involved in it, and so on. So to a esek b'Torah, somebody who's involved in Torah, means that he's busy with it all day long, even when he's not actually learning. Even when he's involved in Inyani Rashus, he does it l'shem shamayim reifin of kol drachecha de'yu, and he's involved in knowing the Eibishter through Torah, and that's how we achieve Podoh B'Shalom Nafshi, that we bring about Shalom in all aspects of the neshama, Shalom above and Shalom below, which is the two inyanim of Shalom, like the Rebbe says on V'shavti B'Shalom. The Alter Rebbe says that it's Shalom amata l'mayla and Shalom amayla l'mata. In other words, that the person not only achieves Shalom within his own neshama, and not only do the matters of this world not stop him from doing Avodas Hashem, but they actually become a help in Avodas Hashem, because the sparks of Kedusha that we're trying to refine are actually sitting and waiting to be refined, and davening that we should refine them. Just like it says, Ki berabim hayu imadi, that also Anshi have Shalom, that the people of Shalom, we're also davening for David to be Menatzeach, for David's victory. And that's Podoh B'Shalom, Shalom from above to below, and Shalom from below to above. The Aveda of Torah and the Aveda of Tshuva, until we reach the Tshuva of Aruach Tashav Elikim Asher Nisana, that even as we're still in a Neshama in a body, the Neshama reconnects to the essence from where it came. Like it says, Elam Chatira B'Chayecha, even in this world, we see that inyan of Elam Haba, and both of these are connected to the Torah, Gemilas Chasadim, and Tefillah B'Tzibur, because Torah and Gemilas Chasadim are Amshacha from above to below, and Tefillah is Allah Mamata L'Mayla, is going from below to above. So that includes within it both aspects, Bishalom, both aspects of Shalom, the Shalom from above to below and the Shalom from below to above. When will be true shalom? So it says, "V'nosati shalom ba'aretz." The Chazal tell us, "Cherev lesaver ba'aretzechem," that even a cherev shel shalom, even a sword of peace won't go through our lands. And the Rebbe points out that cherev shel shalom references davening, aveda of tefillah, and shalom that there isn't even a cherev shel shalom, right? So cherev shel shalom, the fight, but a fight in a way of peace. That's davening. Torah is where there's not even a cherev shel shalom, the aveda of Torah, and that's why, says the Rebbe, there starts kol ha'isek b'Torah v'gmilas chasadim u'misval l'matzibur. The first one it says is Torah before gmilas chasadim and davening. Even though in the seder hayom and the seder aveda of a person, every day starts first with davening and gmilas chasadim before davening, and only after that comes the ikar inyan of limadat Torah, because this manner in limadat Torah in pnimius is shaykh. We're talking about the true shalom, which is through Torah, through Chaya Elam, in a manner of Teiraseh U'Manaseh, in a way that's shaykh to each and every person, in every time and in every place, that when the person's learning Torah, he's learning in such a way that Teiraseh U'Manaseh, that in this moment when he's learning, there's nothing else that exists in his world except for just Torah. And when a person learns in that manner, then it has a pu'ula nitzchitz, it has an eternal effect, and it affects everything he does throughout the entire day, throughout his entire life, that his entire life becomes a life of Torah. And that becomes Akdama Kreva to the time of Yemei Mashiach, when all our involvement will only be in knowing Hashem. Because the true idea of knowing Hashem, he quotes from the Rebbe Rashab, that when a person learns Likutei Torah, Herter Atzmos, he hears Atzmos, he hears the essence of the Eibishter himself. And through this, the kayach is given to each and every person who follows in the ways of the Rebbeim. As the Rebbe Nishma said, and as the Rebbe Rashab said about Yedaitiv Vayisiv, that if I knew him, I would become him, that every single chassid, every single one of Anash, when we're involved in learning chassidus, and in Aveda Shebelev, in Aveda Satzvila, that hert jeder and der fehlt dem Yisiv, was es kommt von dem Yedaitiv Shebeneshama, that every person feels and recognizes and is conscious of becoming one with the Eibishter, that's achieved through the knowledge of the Eibishter that exists in his neshama. That's the true meaning of Podoh B'Shalom Nafshi. That Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kol Ha'esek B'Torah V'Gemilas Chasadim U'Mespal L'Matzibur Ki Ilu P'Ta'ani, that the Eibishter says that it's as if we redeemed him, but when the Eibishter says it, it's an action. The beginning of it, it's just Ki Ilu, as if, but then it becomes, because we don't see it yet, but then it's Nimshach in Maisa, in the practical world of Elam Asiyah, the lowest world, that we actually redeem the Eibishter and the Yidden from amongst all the Umas Elam, actual Padiyah and actual redemption, not just Ki'ilu, not just as if, and then we reach the time when the Asik, the involvement in Torah and Milas Chasadim and Tefillah B'Tzibur, will be Betachlis Hashleimus, Kemitzvos Ritzonecha, the way the Eibishter wants, by Bias Mashiach Tzidkeinu, Yaveh v'Yigalenu v'Yelechenu Kemias L'Artzeinu, Bekarev Mamish, and also in Lashon HaTargum Ba'Gola Didan, actually now. So B'Kitzer, the point of the Maamer, he started off by asking, how do the two interpretations in Podoh B'Shalom Nafshi go together? But by explaining the Maila of Payal Mamish, of actually achieving the Aveda, when we've actually done it in this world, over even the way the Eibishter understands that Aveda, the way it is when it's still in potential, even though past, present, and future is one, that enables us to understand how the P'da'ani Li'u Levanai, the Yid being Isaac and Teira Aveda and Milas Chasadim, brings about the P'diyah of the Eibishter, and therefore the P'diyah that the Eibishter does of the Yidden, of the Tzadikim, of the Podoh B'Shalom Nafshi, that the Eibishter is paid in a much higher way, because it's bringing it into the Tachlis HaKavanah, the ultimate intent of practical reality, of actual reality in the physical world.